Hey guys, I'd just like to give you a warm welcome and thank you for checking out this very first video of my new channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make these gorgeous little Granny's Christmas baubles made from the barest amount of yarn. Perfect for your scrap stash. Perfect if you have particular colors in mind and buy yarn specifically for this project. But let me begin by telling you, my name is Sig, and here at Essential Crochet, we will talk a little bit about yarn. We'll explore garments, gifts, accessories, items that you will be excited to make, proud to wear, and happy to gift. If you like this video or videos like this, please help to support me by subscribing to my channel. Hit the like bar and make a comment if you wish. Now, with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's get started. I'll give you a closer look at these Christmas baubles. I don't know if you can catch the sparkle that these faceted beads catch, but of course they're completely optional. The tutorial, I will show you how to put the whole thing together. However, you really just need your yarn and whatever you're going to stuff your bauble with. Everything else is completely optional. So the materials that I will definitely need for this project, going to be a variety of yarns. The yarns I chose, for the most part, were some of my scrap yarn from the Loops and Thread Soft and Shiny collection. I used a variety of their colorways. And then also I used this yarn from Lion brand. It's their Shawl in a Ball yarn. And I used this yarn for a couple of different reasons. The first reason I used this yarn was because it had kind of the same shine or shimmer as the Loop and Thread yarn. Also, the colorway of this yarn is compatible with the colors I chose from my other yarns that I happen to be using. And even though this particular yarn is a roving yarn, it is still a 4-weight, and its thickness is really quite comparable to that of the soft and shiny yarn. So this is something you're probably going to want to keep in mind, that for this project, I find that at least a 4-weight is what works best for these baubles, at least in this size. Now, if you want to go larger with a heavier yarn, you're just going to simply get a larger bauble, and that'll be completely up to you. You can certainly go smaller, but for this particular pattern, I'm not entirely convinced that the smaller yarns look quite as nice. They look a little open to me, and that's not really the look I want with this particular ornament. For this pattern, I am using a basic African flower pattern that I've modified just a little bit, and you'll see what that is as we move along. Also, you're going to want to use 3 or 4 different colorways for each bauble. Of course, this is a recommendation. You can certainly use a single color if you're looking for a more monochromatic look and it's just the texture of the pattern you want to have shine through. Or if you want to use a completely different color for each round in the piece, that's obviously quite acceptable as well. It's all perfect. It's all about you and the colorways you want to use in order to express your holiday tree ornaments. So for this project, I am going to happen to use 3 different colorways. I'm going to use my Lion brand Shawl in a Ball yarn. I'm going to use these 2 Loops and Threads Soft and Shiny yarns. I'm also going to use scissors, a tapestry needle, and a size F or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. Now this is what you need. This is all you need to make the bauble itself. No frills, no thrills, just your basic bauble. And then everything I show you after this is simply going to be optional. You don't have to use what I'm going to show next. You don't have to utilize the tools that I'm going to show you next. Again, those are strictly optional and of personal choice. So next I'm going to show you the optional items that I am using in this project today. Again, it's not necessary. You don't need them to make a beautiful Christmas bauble. You really don't. But if you want to add a little extra personality to your piece, or if you want to make it a little more sparkly, or something that reflects a little bit more of your personality or the personality of the individual you may be gifting this to, the options that I show you are just mostly for your consideration. Next, I am moving on to the options that I will be using in order to make my bauble for this demonstration. However, I will also tell you how to make this without the options. I'll just give you the simple rundown and you can choose from there. So the first thing I am using is some cording. Now, this is just your basic nylon cording that you can find in any department of your craft or fabric store that sells trim. I happen to like this particular one because it matches the yarn and look of the piece I happen to be making today. In addition, I am using this finding, this bead finding. Typically, this particular finding right here would be used on a necklace. It would finish off a large bead. And for my purposes today, it is perfect to finish off my hanger. I feel that it ups the look of my bauble just that little bit, gives it maybe a little more of a polished or professional look, if you will, without too much additional effort. And then, of course, I will need a large yarn needle. This is simply to help me thread my cording through my bauble once it is finished. And then last but not least, at least with concerns to the hanger of my bauble, I am going to use a little bit of craft glue. Now, this glue is going to be what I use in order to keep my finding in place once I've constructed everything together in a way that I find pleasing. Next, I decided that I am going to use beads. Now, the beads I chose as an option today are these faceted glass beads. I happen to like the way that they sparkle, how they catch the light, how they're clear. So they kind of give the impression of little frost crystals. And so I think they add that little bit of sparkle to the ornament itself. Now, I have a variety of sizes in here, and I will use 2 or 3 different sizes as I see fit in my bauble. Now, to sew these on, I am going to use this transparent nylon thread. And this is perfect for me because you hardly see it. You're not going to be able to see it, so it will not detract from the beauty of your bauble. And then last but not least, I am going to use this beading needle, right? You can see it's a little bent because I've been using it. But this tiny little bead needle is perfect. I'm able to fit this thread into the eye because it's a very fine thread. And then this needle easily goes through my yarn and through the holes of these beads. And then my very final addition to the piece, that of course is optional once again, are my tags. Now these are just a nice generic tag. I purchased them off of Amazon for really cheap. It just says handmade limited edition. Now, if you're making these or you want them to be a little more special, you can certainly purchase tags that say handmade with love. You can customize the tags and have your personalized words added to it, or your logo or your shop name, whichever or whatever suits your fancy. And I think the tags are lovely because they, again, add that nice touch, that nice little professional touch that really shows that you care about your piece. Or at least it gives the impression. I mean, we all care about our pieces, whether they're tagged or not. But when giving it to somebody else, this has a tendency to convey, again, that little something extra, that little additional touch to detail. So to begin with, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a magic circle. Next, I'm going to chain 2. And this chain 2 is going to stand in for my first half double crochet. And then I'm going to half double crochet. And I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to half double crochet again. And I'm going to make another half double crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1. And that gives me 2 half double crochet clusters so far, separated by a chain 1. I'm going to make 4 more of these. So I'm going to half double crochet twice. And then chain 1. Half double crochet twice. And then chain 1. I'm going to do this 2 more times. And then my last chain. And then from there, I'm going to tighten up my ring. And I'm going to join right into that second chain of the first chain 2 that we made. And then I'm going to fasten this off because we're going to go ahead and change colors. Now for my new color, I'm going to go ahead and tie that into wherever I might have a single chain. Then I'm going to chain 2. And that's going to stand in as a half double crochet. And then I'm going to half double crochet. Next, I'm going to get that fluff out of there. I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to half double crochet 2 again. And this set of stitches is all done in that chain 1 space. So I have my chain 2 plus a half double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to half double crochet 2 more, all in that same single chain stitch. Now I'm going to skip the next 2 double crochets, and I'm going to go right over here to the next chain 1 space. And in that chain 1 space, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to repeat the former pattern. I'm going to half double crochet 2, chain 2, and half double crochet 2 more times. And again, I'm going to skip the next 2 half double crochets, and in the chain 1 space, I'm going to repeat the former pattern. Half double crochet 2 times, chain 2, and half double crochet 2 more times. And I'm going to repeat this 3 more times. Now, once I've completed this round 2, I'm going to go ahead and in that chain 2 spot, I'm going to join with a slip stitch. Now, since I'm using 3 colors, I'm going to continue round 3 with the same colorway that I am using. However, if you have a different color that you are interested in using, this is when you would fasten off and you would tie your new color into the chain 2 space before beginning your round 3. But I'm using the same yarn, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, in the next stitch, I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch again into the chain 2 space. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 2 again, 1 and 2. Now, next, I'm going to half double crochet 6 in this chain 2 space. So I have the chain 2, which is going to be a stand-in for a half double crochet, plus my next 6 stitches. So that'll give me 7 half double crochets, basically in this chain 2 space. So we have 1, which is that chain 2, and then the next half double crochet is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I'm going to skip the next stitches and I'm going to half double crochet 7 again in the next chain 2 space. We're going to go ahead and half double crochet again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I'm going to repeat that 4 more times. So again, half double crochet into the next chain 2 space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then after I've completed my last 7 half double crochets, I'm going to go ahead and into that second chain of the first stitch of round 3, I'm going to go and I'm just going to go ahead and tie that off with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to change over to my last color. Next, for round 4, I'm going to tie in my last color. So I'm going to begin by starting with the first half double crochet of any of the 7 half double crochet clusters. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tie it right into there. And then I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to actually do a single crochet into that same stitch. Next, I'm going to single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, I'm going to double crochet right here over the last couple of rounds. So for rounds 2 and rounds 3, I'm going to double crochet right over that. So now how I'm going to do that is I am going to yarn over. I'm going to take my hook and insert it right here into the space directly below it that sits right underneath that round 2 round. And then I'm going to grab some yarn and I'm going to pull that yarn through. So I will have something that looks like this. Then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to follow through just like I normally would with a double crochet. And then I'm going to single crochet 7. So we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. And I'm going to double crochet again right here into the under part of round 2. And then again, I'm going to single crochet 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I'm going to double crochet over the last 2 rounds again. And I'm going to basically repeat this same thing 3 more times. And then that will have completed round 4. So now that I'm at the end of round 4, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do my last double crochet over the last 2 rounds. And then I'm going to join into that first chain. Now I'm going to move on to round 5 using the same colorway. Now, of course, if you would like to change colors again, this would be the time to tie off this particular color and then move on to your next color. But I'm going to stay with the same color. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead after I've joined, I'm going to chain 1. So for round 5, I'm going to work back loop only, and I have my first chain there, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet again in that same spot, same stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet in each stitch after that, only in the back loops. So once I've completed round 5, this is where I'm going to finish off this panel. And I'm going to move on to making my second panel. Now the second panel I'm going to make exactly like this, except when I finish off at the 5th round, at the end of the 5th round, I want to leave a tail long enough to sew with. So now that I've completed my second panel and I've left my tail long enough to sew with, I'm going to start sewing these together. But before I start, there are a couple of different ways you can approach this. So the first way you can approach this is by using an old Christmas tree bauble that you might already have. And you just slip this around that and then just sew it on over like a cover. And then go ahead and use that as the center filling part of the ornament. Or you can use a styrofoam ball. That too is perfectly acceptable. And the same thing, you just stick it in the middle and you just start sewing around it, basically making a cover. In my particular case, I'm going to stuff this. I'm going to stuff it with polyfill. However, you may have something else that you'd rather stuff yours with, or what just happens to be available to you. So you do you, it's just the filling, it's the stuffing, and as long as you can get the desired shape of your bauble, I don't really know that it matters what you choose to fill the inside of your piece with. So I'm going to move on, and now what I'm going to do is I like to go ahead and line up the two sides that I ended my round 5 with. And then in the back loop only, I just go ahead and I do a basic whip stitch just in each stitch. And I do that all the way around. Now, because I am stuffing this with polyfill, I'll probably come, I don't know, probably near 3/5 or 4/5 of the way around. And then I'll go ahead and I'll fill it. Now, if you're going to use an old tree bauble that you already have or a styrofoam ball, you may consider just sewing it about halfway and then slipping your filler into the middle and then continuing to finish sewing that cover up and around. So now you can see how I've stuffed my bauble, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish sewing it shut. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide which beads I'm interested in using, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sewing them in place. So now that I have my ball complete and I have my beads where I'd like to put them that works for me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thread my cord. And I'm going to decide where I'd like to have my hanger situated. And I want to have it right here. So I'm going to find that center seam around the bauble. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to insert my needle and I'm going to pick up, a few of those strands of yarn. Now this isn't very heavy, so I don't really need to be too concerned about the weight of the ball hanging on these few strands of yarn because they are for weight and they're pretty strong and tightly situated in there to begin with. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pinch my ends together. And this finding, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thread my cording through that. And it gives me a nice finish to my hanger. I'm then going to go ahead, I'm going to tie the ends into a knot. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my glue. And I'm going to put a little glue right there inside that hanger. It doesn't take much. Or rather, I should say right there inside that finding. And then I'm going to pull that finding all the way down. And what that glue will do is it will help anchor the finding in place so it doesn't slip around. And it keeps its shape. And so we're going to go ahead and let that dry for just a moment. And then once that's dry, I am going to do my finishing touch of sewing my label right to the bottom of that bauble. And that's all there is to it. So now I'd just like to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you learned something, or at least, at the very least, enjoyed this video. But if you have any questions, any concerns, any comments, just go ahead and leave that in the comment box below. So with all that said, please feel free to check out any of the videos on my site, particularly if you liked this one, and I will be looking forward to seeing you in my next video. Have a wonderful day.